今日はウッドストックの自然の中にスタジオを構えている抽象画家で彫刻家のジェニー・カリーさんを訪ねます。画家の両親のもとウッドストックで育ってきたジェニーさん、ニューヨーク市の狭いアーティストスペースで35年間そこに住みながら創作活動を続けてきた後、両親の家に移り住み10年が経過しました。この歴史のあるスペースを彼女はどんな風に自分らしく作り変えてきたのでしょうか。
Hi, Beanie.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, it's lovely to have you. Come on in.
Thank you. Okay, so your studio has such a big windows, and I see all green outside, and then the wonderful wall is welcoming.
Yes.
With all of your artwork. Could you tell us about your studio?
Yeah, well, this studio has a history, and the history is that this was my family home. This is the home that I grew up in, and both my parents were artists. My mom was a painter and a muralist, Ethel Magafan, and my dad, Bruce Currie, was a painter and a printmaker. And my mom got a mural commission. Her last commission was in the 1970s. And she had the job of doing a 12-foot by 20-foot mural. And so she expanded her studio into this amazing wall to accommodate that size work of art. And after my parents passed, I inherited this house, which was an incredible gift, but also a huge responsibility and a little intimidating, particularly this studio, that I knew, hey, she's not here anymore. This is mine. And it took a long time for me to very gradually and kind of timidly at the beginning begin to make it my own. And 10 years later, I have done that. And all this artwork and my tools and my mess are all my own now. And I love every minute of it, looking out into these incredible woods with the mountain laurel blooming right now. It's just an amazing spot.
Wonderful.
Well, I love to move from one medium to another. I found out many years ago when I used to just do painting that after a while I would run out of steam. I'd run out of ideas and I would just stop. And I discovered that if I switched medium, it would get my ideas going again. And then it just started to become a natural process for me. And at this point I realized what I really love, what gets my creative juices going, is to work with whatever medium it is, to work with cutting up shapes, arranging them, rearranging them, moving them around, and then finalizing them, most of the time with color. Like with this piece, this is cut paper and it's also plywood. Most of it is made out of plywood, which I cut up with my saw, and just the act of moving and arranging is what gives me my creative ideas. I work in cut paper, I work in cut wood, I used to work with cut metal, doing welded steel pieces, but it's all, to me, it's all the same. Whether it's a delicate piece of paper or a big, heavy piece of steel, it's the same creative process to me. I work on the floor a lot when I'm working out my shape. Sometimes when I'm working out a collage, I'm just working on the floor so that pieces aren't glued down yet or anything, and I can see what they look like. But for something big like this that's pretty far along, I like to put it up on the easel, and then I can step way back and really see how it looks from a distance.
What makes you to excite?
Yeah. My big thing is composition. I love creating whatever my surface is. I love to create a composition that'll excite the eye. There's shapes that are going in different directions. There's negative space. There's just a dynamic motion around the surface, which excites the eye. And there's a variety. I want something that's like, whoa, then I feel it's exciting and successful. I start out with a rectangular panel, and I start drawing on the panel, and then I start building up shapes. And that's why I like this building up medium too. I'll think, oh, well, I don't want my composition to end here. I want a shape to go out here or a shape to go out there. I can build it out as I see fit, and I can make that up as I go along. So sometimes I start out with something this big and I add this and this and this. It ends up in the end being twice as big in total dimensions as it was when I started out, and I like having that freedom. I get my inspiration from other artists, and I think some of my biggest influences were Picasso, the sculptor David Smith. He was a remarkable welded steel sculptor who painted actively on his sculptures. He used like thick oil paint on his sculpture, which I found really exciting because that was something that nobody had really done before. Mm-hmm. And African sculpture, the carvings, the beautiful compositions that they would use in their pieces, and so a lot of different artists. I mean, ancient Greek, archaic Greek sculpture, going way back. A lot of my influences go way back in time, so that's where I get a lot of my inspiration from, and then after that I'm just kind of making it up and seeing a lot of happy accidents. I like, that's what I like about the cut shapes, that they're always leftover pieces that I would never think of creating on my own, and that leads to the creative process. It helps enhance the creative process of coming up with accidental things that I can then include in my artwork. I loved color since I was a little kid. I was always getting out the poster colors and getting out the pink and the orange and the red, and I loved intense color. And I was lucky to have like Matisse books lying around the house. I was like, oh my God, Matisse, this is amazing. I instinctively gravitated towards painting at the beginning. And so when my parents saw that I loved doing that and I would get bored with everything else and just want to go paint, then they encouraged it. But they certainly were not going to push me in that direction. So I guess it came, I'm sure it was a combination of nature and nurture, but
right.
I loved doing it from the get-go. Always did, yeah.
Great.
My parents were in some ways very conventional, but in other ways they were kind of wild and crazy, I guess, compared to other people's parents. And the whole environment here, all the artists' friends used to be in this living room all the time, having parties and stuff. And they were delightful, wonderful, and very accomplished people, mostly artists and musicians and actors. But they were pretty wild, in a lovely way, not in a dangerous way. They were just kind of definitely outside the box. So kind of the credo, if you will, or the philosophy of the artists up here at that time was, rules be damned, we'll do it our own way. So maybe that's coming out in my work.
So when I see your artwork, I see that similar color scheme that your parents' painting I just saw in your living room.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that. As a kid, I never noticed that at all until maybe when I was in my 20s. The three of us, for the first time, had a three-person show, my mother, my father, and myself. So all large numbers of work by all three of us were together in one gallery. And that's when people started saying just that. And it had never occurred to me. And I think that's very interesting because our styles each one of us has completely different styles, and yet the color seems to be what ties it all together, which I love. I think that's very interesting. And it was something I did not notice at all.
Okay, so here is a big question. Why do you create?
Why do I create? I just have to. I just have to. There have been periods in my life where I've had reasons why I couldn't be in the studio, and I get a little crazy. I get really grouchy. You don't want to see me when I'm grouchy. I feel like I notice with myself, I'll start thinking like, oh, my life has no meaning. I'm like, uh-oh, okay, Jenny, you need to get in the studio. I've heard this one before. It feels like just going through the motions. If I'm not doing something creative, it's like, okay, go grocery shopping and come back and clean the floors. Like, what? No, I got to do something more interesting than that. And it's just something I have to do.
Yeah, it's like, oh, by the way, I heard this piece is going to go to Venice.
Yes, I was invited to be in a two-person exhibition this summer. just
Exciting.
very exciting to me, and sort of feels like it's going to open up some sort of door.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
ベニスでの賞も好評に終わり、今度は来年秋のソロショーに向けて創作活動に励んでいるジェニーさん。このスタジオの歴史をしっかり紡いでいっているようですね。